Hello, this is Congressional Update with Michael Capuano. I'm Sarah Fishman. How you doing, Mike?
Great, Sarah. How are you?
I am very cold, and it is going to probably snow a lot tomorrow, but this is not news. So we're going to start today with 3 quotes, and I want you to tell me after I've read them which one bothers you the most, okay? The first is, historically black colleges and universities are real pioneers when it comes to school choice. From Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education. That's the first one. The second one is, there were other immigrants who came here in the bottom of slave ships, worked even longer, even harder, for less. That's Ben Carson, Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary. And then third quote, so no, I would not agree that carbon dioxide, is a primary contributor to the global warming that we see. Scott Pruitt, EPA. So of those 3, which bothers you the most and why?
I think they're all pretty bad. They're horrendous, but that's why you picked them.
Well, the first 2 are at least clueless, if not racist. The third one, in some ways, troubles me the most because I looked it up on the website, so it has to be true, that the mission of the EPA is to protect human health and the environment, right?
Yes.
So as opposed to the Department of Interior, which...
What?
Well, it's involved in stewardship of land, of tribal land, but it's also involved in energy resources, and it has a sort of split or dual mission. But the EPA is just keeping a lid on things. So this was a very, to me, troubling comment.
Welcome to the Trump administration.
Yeah, okay. So we have a lot to talk about. Since we last met, which was only about a month ago.
I hadn't heard the DeVos quote.
You hadn't?
No, I missed that one.
Oh my goodness.
And I want to be clear, I'm smiling because it's so ridiculous.
Do you want to hear the rest of it?
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
No, it'll just get me upset. It's been a good day so far.
Okay. She goes on to equate something that existed because of segregation with a modern concept of school choice. So,
yes.
Yeah. It was unfortunate. I think she backtracked afterwards.
Oh, she did? Okay.
Yes, but it was still unfortunate. Okay, so since we last talked, which was only about a month ago, there have been a few things that have happened. The Republicans have introduced an alternative to the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. The travel ban forbidding certain immigrants from Muslim-majority countries has been changed. The Attorney General has not resigned, but has recused himself from a major investigation. There's been an accusation that former President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower during the presidential election. Let's see, what else? And Mr. Trump gave his first address to a joint session of Congress. And I'm probably forgetting other things.
Oh, there's been a lot of
so
stuff.
which one of those important things would you like to discuss first?
It's your show.
It says Congressional Update. It doesn't say Fishmonian Update. It's your show. Okay.
You pick. They're all subject to discussion.
All right, well, let's just start in general with how do you think the administration is doing? Do you think, if you compare the first month with the second month?
Just as bad. And
why?
Because it hasn't calmed down. It hasn't taken a deep breath. It hasn't become more professional. It hasn't reassured any Americans yet that we have somebody in the White House who is capable of handling this job. So I think it's just as bad, and because it's just as bad, it's actually worse. It should have been it should have gotten better by now.
Okay. All right, so let's go to health. So the House Republicans introduced this bill, the American Health Care Act, that's supposed to be an answer to the ACA, Obamacare.
Trump care.
Trump care. And I have a little chart here because I read this so many times and I still don't understand it. The Republican version has no individual mandate. It has an employer mandate only on larger companies. It changes how out-of-pocket expenses are covered in a way that's probably disadvantageous to lower-income people. It allows charging older people more than they could in the past, and it cuts back on Medicaid expansion.
And it has massive tax cuts for wealthy people.
And it has a lot of tax cuts, yes, for higher income people. So what's the same is that there's still guaranteed coverage of pre-existing conditions. Dependents can be on their parents' insurance up till age 26, and there's no lifetime or annual cap on coverage, right? Is that right?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so what do
The
you...
last one has a debate on it, but at least that's their allegation, and it's unclear whether they actually do that, but
Oh, really?
I'll accept it for the moment.
Okay, alrighty. So what is your opinion of this? What is the viability of it?
We're still vetting the whole bill and its impact. It's a relatively short bill, but it obviously has a massive impact. One of the reasons it's so short is because they have one line that says repeal Section 407 of the ACA, which is easy to write, difficult to comprehend what it does. So we're still vetting it, but from what we know at the moment, and today is the day that the CBO is supposed to come out.
I was wondering if it was today.
The Congressional Budget Office, I shouldn't use the acronym, which is a neutral observer and commenter on all budgetary impacts of all congressional bills. So they're supposed to come out today with how many people might get cut off, or what the impacts are, and what it will cost. The preliminary estimates done by other agencies, other groups, not agencies, but other groups, indicates that 10 to 15 million people will lose their health insurance, that cost will go up, and the quality of care will go down. And on top of that, the cost will go up not necessarily for everyone equally. It will go up more for lower and middle income people than it will go up for wealthier people. Wealthier people, as we said earlier, will have a significant tax break, massive tax break for some people, and the cost for lower and middle income people will go up. And again, those are preliminary estimates. They debate those numbers. We'll find out. We'll get another significant input today when we get that report. I'd actually hope we'd had it before we did the show, but it's not out yet.
Right. Well, the Brookings Institution said they based their analysis on the way that CBO does theirs.
Yes.
And they came up with 15 million.
That's right. We've had several that have had it, and they're probably in the ballpark, but CBO is the kind of the king of the hill to a certain extent, and less debatable. And it should tell you something, that before it even comes out, the Republicans are already undermining CBO, which they control at the moment. Number one. Number two, during the Obamacare debate, they insisted that we didn't move forward with the bill until we had the numbers from the CBO, which we did not. Now they have gone forward with the bill without having these numbers.
It's very confusing because didn't some people also say that whatever CBO estimated for Obamacare wasn't accurate, and that the inaccuracies could be due to what predictions they had to make at the time?
Estimates are always going to be different.
Right.
I mean, estimates are just that. They're estimates. They're educated guesses about what's going to happen based on your knowledge at the time. CBO has a pretty good history of it. They're not always perfectly right, but they're pretty good. And they are, again, seen as the professionals who are neutral in Washington. At least one of the many groups. Brookings is too, but Brookings isn't part of the government.
Right. So how important is the CBO analysis? How politically
I think it's very important. I don't think it's political. I think, and don't get me wrong, the CBO analysis on other things have gone against things I wanted to hear. But I can sit here all day long and tell you what costs are going to go up and coverage is going to go down. But I'm just basing it on my minimal knowledge. CBO has access to the best minds in the country, not just theirs. They do outreach. They work with a lot of people. I have no doubt that they will be the best estimate available, but we'll see.
But I guess my question is, how much will it push or not push debate?
I don't know. It depends what they say. On the presumption that they say what we think they're going to say, it will change some debates. It'll put the lie to what the Republicans are saying, what the Paul Ryans and Mitch McConnells and Donald Trumps are saying in the world. But we'll see. Again, for me, it's one of the reasons we're saying, why are you rushing this? They're saying, oh, you rushed the ACA. My God, of all the things in the world, I personally think Democrats took too long. They took a year and a half to debate the Obamacare at the time, which I thought was too long. It allowed the other side to come up with these crazy opinions, and it just took forever. We gave Republicans hundreds of amendments in that bill, and none of them voted for it. The other day, we had two significant committees do their work. The Democrats offered over 150 amendments. Not a single one of them was accepted. That tells you. I think that should tell you something. They're not interested in working with Democrats. They're not interested in being, responsible or compromising. They're interested in pushing an agenda, and the agenda is exactly the agenda they have said from day one, which they want to kill Obamacare, which, as opposed to improve it. And we would all agree it could use improvement, but I'm not willing to kill it.
So why do you think there's so much animosity toward it when so many more people are covered by it?
Because they made such political hay out of it. I mean, death panels and all, and plus, honestly, the president didn't do a good job in selling it. And when he did, he oversold it as far as what could happen and what couldn't happen. I personally think that they didn't. Look, this was a classic example of a typical legislative bill that no one person likes everything in this bill.
It's so humongous. How can everybody?
It's humongous. It's complicated.
It?
No one person drafted it. 435 people drafted it. I personally thought then, and I think now, even with the benefit of hindsight, we should have simply expanded Medicare and Medicaid and simply said more people will be eligible. It would have done the same thing in a more simple way.
Well, you've been on record as supporting single-payer health care.
Well, that is single payer.
But that wasn't going to happen, I think.
I know, but I think in hindsight, I think a lot more people would have appreciated it than what we got. But again, you don't get to vote on a perfect bill. You get to vote on the bill that's in front of you. And the bill that was in front of me at the time expanded health insurance coverage for millions of Americans, and it was a good step in the right direction. That's all it was. It was, hopefully 50 years from now, it'll be seen as a small good step when we're further down the road towards accomplishing this goal. But in the meantime, Republicans have made their political bones on the promise first to repeal.
Right.
Then only recently has it become repeal and replace, because now all of a sudden we have this dog who's been barking for 8 years. They finally caught the bus, and now they don't know what to do with it, and they realize that there's a lot of things in the ACA that people like. And so now they're trying to split this baby, and they're going to have a real hard time doing it in a responsible way.
So what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. I always presume that when you get a major bill like this, it's not a minor bill. This is a big bill, both substantively and politically for them. So I always presume they wouldn't put a bill like that forward unless they were comfortable they would get the votes. So I don't know that, but
in the House or in general?
In general. I can't, I mean, it will be a major political defeat if they lose this bill, not because of Democratic opposition, but because of Republican opposition in addition to Democratic opposition. So I have to assume that Donald Trump, Paul Ryan, and Mitch McConnell will be able to twist enough arms and break enough legs and do whatever they have to do to get enough votes in the House and the Senate. I don't know that, but that's how I enter the fight.
Okay, so if we assume that it gets approved in the House, in the Senate, it could be introduced as part of a reconciliation package, and then
it depends on what it does. If it changes the budget deficit, no, it can't be part of reconciliation, which is why the CBO is so important. If the CBO says this will increase the deficit, they will not be able to put it in part of the reconciliation package.
So then it will require more than just a simple majority vote.
Either that or they'll have to amend it.
Okay.
And I don't think that the bill you have now will be unamended. I think they will amend it, but here's their problem. There is probably no amendments that they will accept that will buy them very many, if any, Democratic votes. I mean, there are amendments that could be had, but I don't think they're going to do it. As I said, they just turned down 150-plus amendments the other day put up by Democrats. So they're not likely to do it. So if they accept amendments, it'll be probably from their extreme right. If they do that, they run the risk of losing some of their more moderate Republicans without picking up any Democrats. So again, that's the dilemma they have.
Complicated.
Gee, legislation is complicated.
But it just seems really complicated because it's a very complicated issue to begin with.
It's a complicated issue, and politics is always complicated when you have two different branches of government plus a president. It's meant to be that way.
Yes. Okay, well, let's switch to something that is not quite, but still complicated. The travel ban has been revised. You want to say quickly what's been changed?
They knocked out Iraq, so people coming from Iraq are no longer going to be subject to whatever it is they're going to be subject to. But that's really about it. And they took away, they had a specific exclusion in the first one that said people, non-Muslim Christian minorities were somehow going to be protected. And now they took that out. which of course was a religious thing because there are also Muslim minorities that are being persecuted as well. All that being said, I'm not the constitutional expert when it comes to immigration law. I'm under the opinion, though, that it will probably be knocked out by a court of law equally.
The one other thing I think it did was it said that green card holders, people who are permanent residents or who have a visa, don't have to be taken off the plane. They can come in the country.
It's not as bad as the last one,
right?
But it presumes that people from these 6 countries are somehow more dangerous, and second of all, somehow go through less screening to begin with. They don't.
Yeah.
They go through massive screening to go begin with, and they should. And I've always said that if the president or anybody wants to say, look, in the way we screen people now, we really need to turn up the dial on these 3 steps, I'd be open to that discussion. What do you mean by that, and why? And we're going to apply it to everybody, and that's fine. But for instance, on the day that President Trump was inaugurated, one of the things I did, I went to visit a family in Dorchester that had just immigrated here as Syrian refugees.
Right.
It took them 2.5 years in Egypt. They had left Syria. They were in Egypt for 2.5 years. A husband, a wife, and 2 now young teenage boys to get here. Now, how could we not have vetted them? How could we have vetted them more than 2.5 years? And if somebody has a specific proposal, say, well, they really didn't check how big their feet were, I'll listen. You know, what is it? My staff and I know pretty well what they go through to vet Syrian refugees and others, and it's a pretty difficult and long process, as it should be. No one's complaining about it, except those who want to do more. And my answer is, okay, tell me what more you want to do. And if the answer is just ban them, I would say that's un-American and unconstitutional, and I think the courts would
So do you have any sense of what percentage of refugees seeking asylum in the U.S. receive it?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
I think it's a very small percentage.
I think so too, because I was reading an article recently that said that in Canada, it's like 62% of people refugees seeking asylum get it. You have to be in Canada though to apply.
Yeah, we're not even close to that. I have no idea what our number is, but it's much, much, much smaller.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we are all so lucky that our ancestors got here.
Right.
We are in a country that people still want to come to. Thank God. And I don't mind having tight borders. I actually don't mind. I actually agree with it. I think we should absolutely have solid, tight borders. No one should get into this country unless we want them here. But then I say, okay, once we do that, I want people to be able to come, and it's based on the economy. How much can our economy absorb? And the economy also should tell me what type of people we should have. And I also think America, as a refuge for everybody, refugees should have a special situation. We can't take all the refugees of the world, but I think it's a good thing to take some. And as an American, as a human being, I want to be able to live in a country that does that. I can't imagine why you would want a country that would pull up the ladder. And if it is, what made your ancestors so special? That, I don't know much about them. Maybe we should re-vet your entire family, and maybe you shouldn't be here.
So this article in Canada suggested that people were fleeing the U.S. and trying to get to Canada instead.
Because it's easier to become a
right.
citizen? Maybe true, I don't know. I saw
some
of those reports.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there are a lot of people, immigrants in this country, and people both who are citizens and non-citizens, people in the process of becoming citizens who would want to become citizens, who are scared to death right now.
Right.
And if
it's also not clear, is it? I mean, there's
totally
some
unclear.
Like you have to be here a certain number of years, and
it's totally unclear. And a lot of people are concerned. They may know the rules today, but they're afraid this administration is going to change the rules tomorrow, and that makes them very nervous.
So, is this revised travel ban? How similar is it? Is it so similar to what was previously put forth that the restraining order against the first version applies to the second
That's going to be up to
version?
the courts. I mean, it strikes
Right.
me as very similar, but I'll leave that up to the courts.
Because that's what the state attorney generals are.
And that's what they're going to
arguing.
court. That decision will be made across the country, like the last one was made. It strikes me as very similar, but I'm not going to presume what the court's going to say.
What did Maura Healey do? She said she was going to somehow join the effort
don't know.
to? I think she just moved to consolidate with
don't
other
know.
states that are behind the Washington State AG arguing. No? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So did you come here when she spoke at the high school?
No, I was in Washington.
Okay. All right. This is a little bit of an aside, but do you have any picks for governor yet?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you think Maura Healey should
Are
run?
you running?
No, I'm not. That's very sweet of you to ask, but no, I'm not. Maura Healey, do you think she would be a good?
We'll wait and see.
Candidate?
That'll be up to her to decide. And
Okay.
We'll see who's running at the
All
time.
right, I said it was an aside. Okay, so with the travel ban, do you have a prediction what will happen?
No, I have no idea. Again, this is very detailed constitutional and legal discussions that I'm not an expert in immigration. I hope it is knocked out, but we'll see.
It's supposed to go into effect on Thursday. Today's Monday. It's supposed to
Yes.
go on Thursday. So is something going to happen in between?
You'll have to ask the courts that. There have been plenty of lawsuits filed, and we'll
So
see.
it's supposed to go into effect on March 16th, which I had to take a lot of Latin when I was a kid. So it's not March 15th, which is the Ides of March, which you have to be aware of. So I just thought, was someone trying to avoid that? I don't know. Okay, different set of questions. So Department of Justice, or if you believe the New York Times Magazine a week ago, Department of Justification. How are we doing there? We have an attorney general who, do you think he should have resigned?
Yes, I do.
And why?
Because he lied to Congress. I never thought he'd make a good attorney general, but that's a substantive issue. And the president any president should have some leeway in picking the people they want. I get that, and I respect that. But it's pretty clear that Jeff Sessions lied to Congress when asked about his relationships with Russia. It's not his relationships with Russia. It's not the fact that he actually spoke to the Russian ambassador. I think that's a good thing, if you want the truth. I agree that they should be speaking with him. It's the fact that they lied about it, that gets me. And look, I have a lot of meetings. I may not remember them, but if I was going before the United States Senate to be vetted, if I missed a meeting, if I forgot about it, somebody in my staff would say, Mike, geez, you forgot that
Well,
one.
first
And
of
then
all,
the
it
next
was-
minute, I'd be out saying,
Wasn't it twice?
yes, it was twice. I'd be out saying, look, I screwed up. I forgot about this meeting on February 3rd, whatever it was, and I apologize.
But that's not what he said.
That's not what he said. He finally said, what's the big deal? And then he came up with, well, I was answering a different question. The question was pretty clear. Now, don't get me wrong.
Oh, those Russians.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't meet with any Russian official, just the ambassador.
Yeah.
And again, it's not the meeting. I mean, some people say, what's wrong? The answer is there's nothing wrong with meeting with the ambassador.
For someone with that level of whatever professional career authority to,
If I
it's
meet
just
with the
totally
ambassador,
implausible.
I know it. It's in my schedule. Now, again, I will
Yeah.
give him the benefit of the doubt to say he could have forgotten it. I don't think you would, but okay. Let's assume. Then you have an obligation to clarify it as soon as you realize I missed that one. I forgot that one. Look, I'm sure Senator Sessions, like me, has a lot of meetings, and sometimes they had a picture of Hillary Clinton in the room with him. Look, I'm in the room with, I met with a group of people from South Sudan just last week. They introduced themselves, but I didn't catch every single person.
Right.
Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't. And if you told me, well, you met with so-and-so, my answer is, okay, I don't remember that.
Right.
And here's a picture of you, okay, fine, yeah, I did. But the meeting wasn't with him, it was with Sarah Fishman. She brought him. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
And again, there's 1,000 different reasons why you may not say it. But then you have an obligation to clarify the record, and he
Right.
didn't do that. To me, he lost the respect and trust of the American people when you openly and blatantly lie about meetings like that.
So how come he wasn't, how come?
I don't know.
he
It
didn't?
strikes me as the good old boy network. Honestly,
I mean, how
think
come?
I give Senator Franken credit. He called for his resignation. Most of the senators remained silent.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, because we had this past resignation. So what's the difference in terms of?
I don't know. Well, the other one was because the president finally decided to put Mr. Flynn under the bus. I don't know. Look, I can't explain it.
Because if one thinks that perjury is worse, this is worse, and perjury coming from the top law official in the country seems particularly perverse.
I don't see how he can possibly have any credibility on any other criminal matter that comes before him as Attorney General.
So now he's recused himself, to shift the discussion a little.
It's better than nothing, but it's not.
He's recused himself from what exactly? From the investigation?
From investigating anything relative to Russia, allegedly. Right. We'll see.
Okay. Well, he should have done that. He should have done that right away.
Well, he could have done that during, again, and I'm trying to give as much leeway as possible.
Right.
People do forget some meetings they have. I get that. And they do make mistakes, and they do mishear a question. I'll get all that. But then you have a proactive obligation to clarify the record as soon as you realize it. And he didn't do that.
Yeah. So how does this compare with past administrations? I mean, I just want to make sure I'm being historically fair.
Well, I mean, I can't judge them all. I'll let history do that.
But you've been in
my
office
time,
for...
I've never seen a more horrendous beginning to an administration. Every administration has some bumps. I get that, especially when you haven't done this before. If you were the governor of a state or something, you've probably done this before, you'll have fewer bumps. And again, he's coming out of private enterprise. I think America, including me, are willing to give them a little bit more leeway in some of the bumps. But it's one thing to have a bump. It's another thing to do your own tweeting and creating your own bumps. That's a whole different story.
Yeah. So if, and this might be stretching it a little, but there are a lot of positions that haven't been filled yet, particularly in the Department of Justice and State. Yeah. So is it that there is a general lack of organization, or is it that they want to shrink government, or is it some combination, or?
I don't know how many of I haven't followed all the details of who they've submitted to Senate. I mean,
well, there are 1,100 appointees.
How many have they submitted to the Senate?
Yeah, I don't know how many.
I don't either. Look, again, those are the things I'm willing to give them some leeway on.
Right.
But you can't have the leeway and then be able to complain about it. It took me a while, as mayor of Somerville, a significantly smaller entity, to make all my appointments and to move some people out that I wanted to, that weren't bad people, but you have to have your own people. I get that. And at the same time, you can't do that and then complain about it. Transition is normal, and it takes some time, but it's still all on Donald Trump's desk. And if he's complaining about the fact that they haven't been able to get rid of enough people or be able to replace them, that's on him. Nobody else. If the Senate's holding up his appointments, well, he needs to pick up the phone to his friend Mitch McConnell and move some along. I have not heard that complaint yet. So to me, it looks like they're trying to have it both ways.
All right. Well, we only have a few minutes left. So 2 quick questions. One is, did you go to the joint session of Congress speech that he gave? Okay. And did you have any impression of that, one way or the other?
As far as speeches goes, it was fine. I mean, there was very little in the speech. If just by the foursquare of the speech, forgetting what he had said before he got there, but just on the speech, there's very little in the speech that was very controversial that you could disagree with. Okay. So if you didn't know anything coming in and you didn't know anything coming out, and you just watched the speech, it was fine. But that's never the case. You know coming in, you know what the speech is, and then going out. What did you
think of the widow of Ryan Owens, the Navy SEAL who had died?
That's fine. I mean, a lot of presidents do that kind of thing.
Emotional.
It was an emotional thing. We have a military man who gave his life for this country, and no matter what you think of the administration or the mission he might have been on, you have to respect the warrior, and we all do. And so yeah, it was emotional. All
right. One other quick question: the wiretapping claim that Trump has made against Obama. Is this warranted? Does it need to? What's going to happen with it?
It's being investigated this week. It was supposed to get the first reports from the FBI to see what's there, if anything. Look, as far as I'm concerned, it's the most outrageous thing President Trump has said since he's been in office. It's outrageous. Look, other things he said are outrageous, but they're outrageous within the normal boundaries of policy differences. Implying that the prior president possibly broke a law, a serious law, to wiretap an incoming president without any evidence offered is incredible.
It's scary to think that that a leader would feel so paranoid.
If it's not true, we have a delusional paranoid in the White House, and that's a real problem. If there's any truth to it, one of two things could have happened. either President Obama or his administration violated the law, and if they did, they should be held to account. I will not defend them if that's what they did. If they didn't violate the law and they had a court order to wiretap, I think the American people deserve to know
Right.
what was behind that court order.
Right. Okay, I think on that note we have to end. This has been Congressional Update with Michael Capuano. Have a good day.